Chapter 7. Phil Ornstein's corner office on the 41st floor was lined with gold records and pictures of Philly's frankly unattractive family, but none of famous people, which was either an affection or a reason to love the guy. He ushered Johnny Fontaine behind his stainless steel desk. "Take as long as you like," he said, though he couldn't have meant that. Milner was getting the band squared away for the next number. Johnny dialed the number to his old house. Halfway through, he stopped. Ginny and the girls had no idea he was in LA. If he didn't call, they'd be none the wiser. He was calling to apologize for not seeing them while he was in town, but the only thing that made the call necessary was the call itself. He took out the pep pills, considered the label, then took one out and swallowed it. Shit, what was he, some schoolboy segaiolo? Afraid to ask out the prom queen? He'd known Ginny, his ex, ever since they were 10. The literal girl next door. He redialed. "It's me," he said. "Hello, my life," Ginny said. She managed to say that in a way that was sweet and sarcastic at the same time. There's nothing like a Brooklyn girl. "Where are you?" "God, it's great to hear your voice," Johnny said. "What are you doing?" "They'd just gotten back from May Company," she told him. His oldest daughter had purchased her first brassiere. "You can't be serious," Johnny said. "When's the last time you saw her?" Ginny said. He had had good-paying gigs in Atlantic City and at private clubs in Jersey Palisades and the one Louis Russo had outside Chicago. He'd done a picture on location in New Orleans. The early scenes of it were shot here, on sound stages. Probably then. "Memorial Day?" "Rhetorical question," she said. "So where are you now?" "Remember that one Labor Day? I don't know what year," he said. "We rented that place at Cape May, and we all went to that clam bake?" "No," she said. "You're kidding," he said. He could hear his girls in the background, arguing. "Of course I'm kidding. Those were the times of my life, back when I didn't exist." Les Haley had insisted that Johnny pretend he was single so that the Bobby Soxers would all keep screaming. "That was never my idea," he said. "And you had your floozy across town so that every time you went out for cigarettes. Remember when I burnt my hand trying to cook that corn and then burnt them again on those firecrackers?" "True." He had to laugh. "There's a block party tomorrow," she said. "We have to make pie. You want to come?" "To the party?" "You're in town, right? You sound so close." He cradled the phone against his shoulder and covered his eyes with both hands. "No," he said. "I'm not. It's just a good connection." "Oh," she said. "Your loss. I'm making chicken scarpariello too. Same recipe your ma showed me. Actually, the girls are. If they don't kill each other first. They're at that age." Johnny loved them, but as far as he could tell, they'd always been at that age. She asked if he wanted to talk to them. He said he did, but only his younger daughter would get on the phone. Philly came in, tapping his watch. "Tell your mother," Johnny said, "that I'll do my best to make it to the party tomorrow." "Okay," she said. She had conveyed the message. She was that kind of kid. But there was a note in her voice that made it clear she knew he'd never show. The green pills had been prescribed by Jewel Siegel, the same doctor who diagnosed the warts on Johnny's vocal cords and referred him to the specialist who shaved them off, an operation that made it possible for Johnny to get back into good voice and into the studio, a diagnosis 2 specialists had missed. Point being, there were 1,000 Hollywood quacks whose interest in the human body had dwindled to the fleshy parts of their starlets du jour and the finer points of their own backswings, getting rich by handing out pills and taking care of girls in trouble. And then there was Siegel, who had the same kind of rep, but turned out to be a first-rate doctor, good enough to be chief of surgery at the new hospital the Corleones were building in Las Vegas. So why was it that every time Johnny popped another of those pills, still in line with the dosage recommended on the side of the bottle, never more, he went off by himself? Johnny shook it off, like a dog with an itch in its ear. He'd be fine, really. both under control and not, which was okay, which suited the task at hand. He was getting by on 4 pills, 20 cups of tea, a pot of coffee, a ham sandwich, and no sleep. In the space between his scalp and skull, microscopic ants danced some hepcat thing like the hucklebuck. The aching in the big muscles on top of his thighs, whatever they were called, sharpened almost by the minute. But Johnny stayed on his feet, too spent even to fall to the floor for a nap. At the same time, he had too much energy. He couldn't help but take each piece of barely perceptible direction he got from that brilliant Lumax Milner and do his level best to put it in play. He'd have given anything to stop. He'd have given anything to make this feeling last forever. He had come here thinking he'd lay down half a long-playing record. A few minutes into the session, he realized he'd be doing well to finish one song to both his and Cy Miller's satisfaction. Yet, minutes before he'd have to catch a plane back to Vegas, he found himself doing the 3rd song of the day so well he got to the end without stopping or being stopped. As he finished, he opened his eyes and saw Jackie Ping Pong and Gussie Cicero standing inside the far door to the studio. How long they'd been there, Johnny had no idea. Milner had already wiped out a pad of paper. As a conductor, he was laconic and fluid, but he wrote charts the way a stray dog eats a pork chop. He was oblivious to anything else in the studio, even the intern standing next to him with a bottle of soda and a fistful of pencils. Johnny sat on his stool and lit a cigarette. "Mom! Dad!" Johnny called, looking first to Milner and then Ornstein, then pointing at Ping Pong and Gussie. "My ride's here. Don't wait up." His legs felt impossibly heavy. Finally he looked up and waved Gussie and Ping Pong over. "My friend," Jackie said, waddling toward him. He was a hugely fat man, just an acquaintance really. "You're looking like $1,000,000. You sound even better." $1,000,000 and a blowjob," said Gussie Cicero, a pally from way back. "Wrong," Johnny said. "If a chick knows you got $1,000,000, she'll blow you for free. Those free blowjobs are the most expensive kind." That cracked Johnny up. He slapped Cicero on the back. "Well, if I look like $1,000,000, Johnny said, "you two look like a shit I took this morning." Johnny stood and let Ping Pong and Cicero embrace him. For years Johnny had assumed that Jackie's nickname had come from his bulging eyes. But not long ago Frank Falcone told him Jackie's eyes hadn't done that until years after he got that nickname, which actually come about because of his name, Ignazio Pignatelli. Gussie Cicero owned the swankiest supper club in L.A. Johnny hadn't played there since the time his voice went out on stage, and Variety wrote it up like it was an occasion for the whole staff to break out the Crown Royale and dance on Johnny's fresh grave. Gussie and Johnny had remained friends, though. "Frank Falcone sends his regards," Gussie said. Gussie was said to be a made guy in the L.A. organization, which was connected somehow with Chicago. "He's not coming," Johnny said. "Mr. Falcone came down with something," Ping Pong said. His meaty fist clutched a new-looking satchel. He was Falcone's underboss. Johnny couldn't have said just what an underboss did. Johnny tried not to know more about that kind of thing than he had to. "Other than his regards, he also sends this." "Nice," said Johnny. "I'll get you one," Ping Pong said. "Quick as I can get it made and shipped over from Sicily. I got a guy there. Works like a dog and makes 10 of these a year. Virgin leather, best there is. Want me to send it to the castle in the sand? Your home? Which?" Fontaine had been working on some kind of joke on the virgin part of virgin leather, but he was just too frazzled. Nothing clicked. "This one isn't mine." "I'll get you one." "Kidding, Jack." "I'm not offering, I'm telling you." "All right. But this one here," he said, handing it to Johnny, "is for Mike Corleone, capiche?" Meaning, enough with the ragging and whatever you do, kid, don't fucking open it. The bag, packed tight, was heavy as a bowling ball. Johnny gave it a little shake, like a kid at Christmas, then held it up to his ear, making a show of seeing if it was ticking. Funny guy. Ping Pong narrowed his eyes in his fat face and just stood there, apparently until he was satisfied that Johnny had gotten the message. I must express my regrets also, Ping Pong finally said. I have to see to some personal family matters. No sweat, Johnny said. So I'm your fucking bag man now. But he just stood there, absorbing the indignity like acid into cheap cement. It's our loss, not seeing you, Ping Pong said. You're sounding great, John. Milner kept writing. The musicians filed out. Johnny said his goodbyes and headed out with Gussie and Ping Pong. A Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow was idling by the back door. Where's the Queen? Johnny said. Excuse me, Ping Pong frowned, as if he took it that he was being called a fag. He means of England, Gussie said. He's joking. Ping Pong shook his head in a kids today way that Johnny could have done without. The car's mine, Johnny, Gussie said. A black Lincoln pulled up. Ping Pong and his men got in and sped off. As they did, Johnny caught a flash of metal out of the corner of his eye and jerked out of the way. He stumbled and fell against the side of the Rolls. It had not been a bullet. Johnny wasn't exactly sure why he thought it might be. Nice catch, Gussie said. You all right? Johnny reached down to pick up Cicero's car keys. Long day, Johnny said. All you had to say, Gussie said, was no thanks. No thanks what? No thanks you didn't want to drive my fucking Rolls Royce. Johnny tossed him his keys. No thanks, I don't want to drive your fucking Rolls Royce. See, is that so hard? I didn't hear you, okay? I'm bushed, brother. The sun was about to set. Johnny couldn't have said how long it has been since he had an honest-to-God night's sleep. Gussie gave Johnny a hug and said it had been a privilege to hear him sing. They got in and headed for the airport. Johnny started spinning the dial on Gussie's radio, checking out the competition. All around the dial were fads. Rock and roll, fast-talking disc jockeys. Mambo, another fad. Weepy girl singers, yet another. Johnny never once came across his own voice. Maybe the other record companies were right. Maybe the kind of record Johnny Fontaine was trying to make didn't have a Chinaman's chance. He kept spinning the dial. Gussie must have picked up on how jangled Johnny's nerves were, and for most of the ride there had the decency not to say anything until they were getting off the freeway for the airport. What's the difference, Gussie said, between Margaret Ashton and a Rolls Royce? Margaret had been Fontaine's second wife, Gussie's first. Fontaine had left Ginny for Margaret. It wasn't enough that Margaret stole his heart. She took everything, even his self-respect. One time, he showed up on the set of a movie she was doing and the director put him to work cooking spaghetti. Without a word of complaint, Fontaine tied on an apron and did it. Love, fucking love. Not everyone's been inside a Rolls Royce, Johnny said. You heard that? Everyone's heard that. You know, with different fancy cars and different sluts. Sluts don't come much more different, Gussie said, than Margaret Ashton. That's where you're wrong, pal o' mine. A slut's a slut. Gussie made a wrong turn, toward the commercial flights. You made a wrong turn, Johnny said, pointing to the road to the private hangars. Gussie shook his head. Actually, he said, I'm not going either. Frank didn't want you to be sore, but you know, a whole plane, just for one guy? He reached into his breast pocket for a gun. But no, not a gun. Johnny was wrong. Gussie pulled out an envelope. It's commercial, but it's first class. Johnny took the plane ticket. His flight left in 15 minutes. You're really not going? Actually, Gussie said, I was never invited. Of course you're invited. I'm inviting you. It's okay, Gussie said. Gina and I got plans. Gina was the girl he'd married after he'd been dumped by Margaret Ashton. Ashton had married an Arab sheik after that and already divorced him too. Our 5th anniversary, if you can believe it, he said, stopping the car. Skycaps practically ran the help, seeing a Rolls, imagining big bags and bigger tips. Next weekend, though, she and I got tickets to come up there to see you. You bought tickets? At a bargain price, if you sound half as good as today. I catch you on anything but a comp list for any show I ever do. It's your ass, Pally. There was a crowd, maybe 20 people, all different ages. He told the skycaps he didn't have any bags except just this little one here, but he duked them anyway, 20 apiece. Two men in the sky blue sports car rushed to meet him and help him through the crowd, which caught everyone's attention, even in a place like LA. The crowd snowballed, surging behind him all the way to the gate. Against his better judgment, Johnny handed the satchel to one of the airline guys so that he could sign quick, illegible autographs, including one some dame wanted right on her face. He duped the two airline guys 50. When he boarded the plane, there was applause. He waved and smiled but did not remove his sunglasses. He took his seat. He put the bag on the floor between his legs. Under different circumstances, he'd have been after that red-headed stewardess with the big tits, but all he asked her was for a pillow, a bourbon rocks, and a hot tea with honey. He looked at the satchel. Another sort of guy would open it now. Johnny couldn't have given a shit. It took forever to bring the drinks. "We don't have honey," she said. "No tea either, looks like." "I'm heating the water right now." She turned around. He looked down at the satchel. He opened it. It was jammed with cash, of course. On top was an unsigned, typewritten note that said, "Told you not to look." The O's in look had dots inside. Underneath was an upside-down smile. Johnny wadded the note up. He saw the redhead coming with the tea and downed half his bourbon. He chewed ice as she set the tea down. He made his left hand into a pistol, pointed it at her, winked, and made a little chucking sound. She blushed. By the time the redhead passed through the cabin getting everything squared off for takeoff, he'd finished the bourbon and the tea and was sound asleep.